All right, so welcome to DocentEDU 101. We're going to be going over the basics of how to use DocentEDU to make the internet your lesson. So if you're new, this is going to be great. And even if you used it before to create some lessons, I might be going over a couple of new things for you. This will last for about 20 minutes, and at any time, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them on the page. I believe I enabled the Q&A option, I think. There we go. Nope, it's added in now. All right, yeah, so the Q&A is open, so go ahead and post things on there. And if you want to show off a docent or something like that, just let me know and I'll invite you to it and you can join in. So let's go ahead and get started with that screen sharing. All right, okay, all right, so right now, I think what you're seeing here is my DocentEDU dashboard. So I think I'm actually just going to start off here so if you haven't already, go ahead, go over to docentedu.com and install the extension. So the way DocentEDU works, it's a browser extension. So it works, we've got that extension available for Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. So we've got down here for all of the devices. If you are like a one-to-one Chromebook school, it's going to work the best. And we also have Android and iOS apps as well. So ready to go. So you just simply click on sign up and get the browser extension. And this is going to kind of walk you through it. The students do the same thing. They will also need the extension. So at this point, right, you're going to select you want to be a teacher, and you're going to sign in with Google. Same thing, teachers and students sign in with Google. I've already created classes, so I'm just going to click Not Now. You can always go back later, and then we're going to install the extension. I already have it installed, so I'm going to go ahead and go through. It won't really do much here. I'll do cancel there. And we're just going to go jump over to the dashboard. All right, so this is the dashboard. I'm going to come back to this. Right now, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and create a docent. So the way DocentEDU works is that you have the app or the browser extension installed. So right now you can see the extension. It's up here with the DocentEDU logo right there. And we're just going to go through and we're going to pick one that I don't think I have done anything with. Let's go ahead and try this one. So essentially what you do is you navigate the internet like you would anyways. Like if you're looking for something for your students, either information that you'd want to use then turn into a presentation, but we're not going to do that. Or if you want your students to read it, this is going to work out great. So this is the article that I want docent. It's kind of got a fair amount of text in here, and you can choose the different Lexile levels because it's on Tween Tribune. And again, this is going to work on almost any website. You're going to click the extension. And what it's going to do is now it's going to load in the toolbar on the left-hand side. I'm going to follow these things in chronological order. But this first one is for when you want to sign it. So we're kind of actually do that one at the end. But this first one is your annotation tool. This is like the highlighting tool. So let's say if we want to highlight this of little free libraries. And now if you want to add in a little tiny note, you can click on that highlight that you added. You can delete it or you can add in a note. Or if your note's going to be for your students, you can even add in some little emojis if you want to kind of like make a little bit of fun with that. And then click OK. And now any highlight that has a note attached to it is going to have that border around it. And that means students are going to see this and they can click on that. So I should say that too. What you're creating is almost exactly what the students are going to see. So this is kind of fun too, of that they're like modern day iteration of the classic bookmobile. Minneapolis, Minnesota held the first Little Free Library Festival. That is pretty awesome. I didn't realize that. I'm going to highlight that right there. And go Minnesota. We're based in Minnesota well, we're all in Minnesota right now for DocentEDU. So it's pretty great. All right, so that is the annotation tool, and students also have their own annotation tools, so they can do that, and you as the teacher can view those. All right, so now I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add it in a sticky note. So for this, since Little Free Library Festival, I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. The reason that I'm going to copy that text is these sticky notes are where you get to add in additional notes. So actually, up here at the beginning, I always like to start off by adding instructions. So I'm going to go up here, click on the title, instructions, read the text, and answer questions. Watch all videos. All right, so there's our instructions, right? So now instead of students asking, like, what am I supposed to do? Because they missed those instructions, hey, we got it at the beginning of the lesson. That's pretty nice. or they're not switching tabs. All right, so going back down here, so these sticky notes, they can do a lot more than just text, right? So it's images, YouTube links, embed codes. We've got a whole other webinar that talks about just embed codes. So I'm going to go over to YouTube. And let's see here. So the reason I copied that text is I'm going to paste that in. And little free libraries, festival highlights. Perfect, right? So let's say if I want students to watch this video in there, let's get started here. Perfect. So what we're going to do is you just copy that URL, head back over to our docent, and just paste that in. It's that simple. Students now can actually, you see, they're literally watching this YouTube video right there within the text now. And you can, I always like to then follow that up with questions. So this question tool, that's what we're going to look at here. This lets you actually embed questions into the text. So from the video, explain why the question is going to be, and then click create. And you can also add the number of points and things like that. But what's really great about this is the interactive part. Students can actually type their answer right there. They'll click there and they start typing their answer in, and all those responses get collected into the dashboard. I'm going to show you next. At any point, you can always click on edit and go back, change the number of points, or delete or save. Now, one of the other things you can do is you can also turn these, right now it's a free response, like typed out response right here, but you can turn these into multiple choice questions also. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a multiple choice question of like how many little maybe a better question. I'm going to come up with this off the top of my head here. But right, so this is my question. And now what I want to do is I want to turn this into multiple choice question. So I'm going to put in 10. I'm going to type that. So me as the teacher, if I click in the answer box here again, I'll do that again. If I click here where it says answer as the teacher and I start typing, hit enter, it's now instantly turned this from free response to multiple choice. There we go. And then I go ahead and I select which one it is. I don't know. I'm going to guess like a million. I've got like 2 of them in my neighborhood. I guess maybe it's because I live in Minnesota. I don't know, but it seems like a lot. So we're going to go with a million. I want to research this one first. But all right. And so now I'll show you guys how multiple choice looks later on. But it's really cool because this basically isn't going to tell students the correct answer. It's going to be kind of like a mix. All right. So we've got that right now. So we got multiple choice. And this last one I'm going to show you is the discussion. Discussion tool looks very similar to the question one. So it's, again, I can put in here of why do you or don't you use a little free library? All right, so we've got our discussion question, and what happens here is these discussion questions update live for all the students that are in that class, right? So this docent is going to show up for only students that have the extension installed and they are in the class that you've assigned this to. That means that all the responses are private, and for these discussions, only students in that class can view each other's responses. And it's kind of fun of like, it's like, all right, and then I just click post, and there it is. And so then as people add in more responses, they can keep showing up. And if somebody ever posted something that you wanted to block or ban, you click this little ban button right there, and it's going to hide it from the students. But for you as the teacher, you'll still see it, and you can always bring it back later on if you wanted to. But this is going to update in real time for all of your students on the page. And in fact, everything on this docent is going to update in real time. All right, so now, I mean, we've basically gone through, we've created our docent. Now this is where it gets really fun because so I taught high school science for 8 years, and or the last 2 years of teaching with using DocentEDU as we developed it, it was a lot of fun because I actually kind of discovered how a lot of my old questions were pretty bad because I'd use very basic questions, and now it's like you can really get into some of those higher level thinking questions now because we're embedding it in the text. All right, so I'm done. I'm ready to assign it. So I'm now just click on the DocentEDU logo up at the top. I will select the class I'm going to assign it to. And that's it. The docent has now been assigned to that class. So students can now go to this URL. So it's that same original one, and they'll see it. Down here, got a lot of classes here. We also have this option of share to Google Classroom. So if you are one of the millions of teachers that are using Google Classroom, you can import your student roster as well as assign directly to Google Classroom by clicking on there. It's pretty great. All right, so our other tools we have here is this one takes you to the dashboard, which I'll show you in a little bit. But this one right here is this like Q&A, feedback, really just support question button or support tool. So you can just click on that, send us a message. That's literally going to send us a question immediately, so we can kind of get back to you as quick as possible. There he goes. You can see me. So it'll send me a message right away, or anybody else on our team. And if you've got ideas or questions, you're running in something, just go ahead and send us a message. It's great. All right. So now let's go over to the dashboard. And the dashboard is where all of your lessons, and we call them docents, where all of your docents exist, where your classes are. So here you can then create them, your grades, and a little help section that we have here. And also you'll notice down here is that little same feedback help button. All right, so we're gonna go back over to the docents. We're gonna kind of go chronological here. From here, you can then assign your docents. So if I wanted to assign this to one of my classes, I can select it to that class, assign as many classes you want, and it'll show up here, it'll tell you which ones they're assigned to. So it'll give you like which website they're from, the title of it, and if there's a thumbnail image it was able to grab. And this orange button is a really fun one. This lets you then share that docent with other teachers. And so what that means is that just the docent itself is going to get shared, nothing else. And I'll show you what this looks like then as you share it. So all that student data, right, that is never accessible at all when you're using the share link. And this isn't something you'd want to use to give to your students. This is when you want to share one docent with another teacher. Oh no, this is my own docent. That's why I wasn't able to see it. All right. Yeah, so you would just copy that link and then share it out, and you can quickly share on Facebook, Twitter, or email it from there. All right. Oh, and then also you can, because you'll start creating quite a few docents, you can then also organize them by class. So I can see just the docents for biology that are on here. And for the ones that I'm the sole owner of, then I can delete those as well. And the reason I brought that up is because you can also co-teach. So over here in classes, I've got quite a few. The way this works is when you want to create a new class, go to classes, click the plus. What name of your class is. If you're using Google Classroom, you can import your student roster automatically. I'm going to click create, and that's it. All right, so I'm going to scroll down to where my lessons are. Oh, that's right, because it goes chronological. All right, here we go. DocentEDU 101. So the way that it works is that students enroll themselves in the class. What I typically do is on the first day of class, I will pull this up on the screen, click that button, those binoculars, and right here it's going to say, right, go to docentedu.com/signup and enter this code. It's that simple. I mean, so if you've got 30 students in your class, they're all going to be signed up within 2 minutes. It's pretty awesome. And if you're using an LMS like Schoology or Edmodo or Canvas, then all you have to do is just tell them to go to docentedu.com, sign up, and then give them that class code. So over here now is where you can also view the student roster. So I'm going to go and take a look at one of them. Let's see here. This is my French Science T3. Yeah, so now you can view that student roster so you can see which students are enrolled in it. You can delete the class if you really want to. But one of the really fun things here is that you can invite a co-teacher. So if I click on that, it's just you put in that name. And what that means is that any docent that is assigned to that class, both of you will have access to that docent. You can edit and create the docent at the same time. It's a lot of fun because all of your annotations, everything are going to show up in real time. So it's just kind of like if you're working on a Google Doc with somebody else. And then also all of those student responses, each teacher is going to be able to see. So I'm going to press cancel right now. And then going over to the grades. So one of the ones I'm going to show you here is one of my favorites from Tween Tribune also. So I'm going to load this in. So this is one about 8.8 million tons of plastic. So I've added in a predict question up here at the beginning. And again, just to show you kind of how this looked from the beginning. Oh, and I'm just kind of realizing now that the Q&A is not on right now. So if you do have a question, go ahead and put it in the comments of the main page, and then I will, I'll see it on there, and I'll be able to answer that. All right, so on here, this is the original page of Tween Tribune. And I'm going to load in the DocentEDU extension. And you can see this is one of the ones, this is one that I actually used with my environmental science class. So I start off with a predict question. And then down here is just right off the bat, 8.8 million tons of plastic. That is not a number that most people can comprehend. And so what I did is, because I always like to, I want students to be able to actually understand what these big numbers mean, because they're always talking about big numbers, like $10 trillion on something. What does that mean? So for that, I highlighted 8.8 million tons of plastic. And then I put in this multiple choice question of, all right, how many elephants do you think that equals out to? So basically we're looking at 700,000 elephants is the equivalent of 8.8 million tons. And what's fun here is this is a very quick self-check that students can do. They get instant feedback, and I'll show you what that looks like in the gradebook. So going through, I had a couple of things here. So they talk about of all this garbage dotting the coastline. It's like, well, how much is that? So I did a quick Google search, and hey, that's 372,000 miles of coastline. So I'm kind of adding in these extra things that I kind of want my students to understand. So I want them to understand the immensity of all this garbage. So I'm putting in some notes, and then I follow that up with a discussion question, right? So discussion questions, if students are going to have an opinion, that's going to be a good way. So I've got for this, hold on, this is a lot of plastic, but do you think this actually causes a problem? Why or why not? And so, of course, then that's kind of how it works, is that then students are giving their opinion in there. And then as we go through, we've got a number of highlights. I've got a couple more questions. And then this is one of, it's not just YouTube videos, but anything with an embed code you can put in. So Edpuzzle is a great tool that lets you add questions and notes into videos. So it's very similar to how DocentEDU works, but it works on videos instead of web pages. So as students go through and they're watching this, this will actually kind of pause and play the video. And it's a great way to be able to crop things down. So I've embedded that video. Students are actually going to be able to watch the Edpuzzle right here within the page. Pause that, and I followed that up with some questions, a couple more discussions as we go along. And then I ended that with some instructions of, right, so now respond to one person's comments on the above discussion, and then move on to our next docent. So going back up to our multiple choice, one of the reasons I used to hate multiple choice questions, because they're always kind of like, it's like for automated assignments. But now as a science teacher, I love this because I'm getting some real information of what my students are thinking. So with the grades work is that you first select the class that you want. So this is my environmental science. I think it was that one. And 8.8 million tons of plastic in there. And here now is where, so this is going to give me a list of all the responses on here. And you can also download the grades as a CSV file, so you can import that into Excel or Google Docs. What I want to know is this multiple choice one. And this is what's really fun about the multiple choice, is that it collects what order, or it tracks down what order students answer the incorrect one, right? So Ariana selected 372 elephants, and then she slowly kept building up, right? So that's great, because it's like, I don't care that it took her 3 times to get the right answer. What I really care about is, all right, her understanding of that much of 8.8 million tons was really low, and now I see that, no, like, that's really what I'm kind of trying to get at. And then I can see then of like how other students kind of did, or like if they're kind of like jumping all around. So this is pretty good information. So now I can do this with any of the other questions on here. Let's see, here's a go to. So now it's going to show me, so when you select any of the different questions on here, it's going to show you the student name, what the question was, and then what their response was. And you can go on here and you can just simply type in or you can enter in a score. Right, so Heidi did not answer anything there, so I'm going to give her 10. And you just keep hitting tab, and it's going to go down to the next one as you go along. You can also do kind of the traditional way of instead selecting the student instead. So I have no questions selected, but now I've got the student. So now it's going to show me the question and then what their answer was. And go ahead and give them a score, and it'll auto-calculate what their average percent is for that lesson. So that is the grading section. It makes grading much easier because it's not simply about like, what they get or what they get, but I love that whole like this questions part of what was my class as a whole thinking as they're going through here. All right, so our last one in the dashboard is the help section. So this is our FAQ. It's going to go through. I kind of broke it up into different spots that you'd want to do it. Like, right, so for your first lesson, how do you enroll your students, sending your students to the first docent, those kind of things. So creating your docents, setting up classes, Google Apps, grading, then information for students, and then just in general, and then stuff about your account. And of course, anything that's not on there, again, click on this, send us a quick question, and we'll get back to you. All right, so the last thing I'm going to show you here is Google Docs. So DocentEDU works great with Google Docs. So right, so in addition to almost any website that's out there, you can use this with a published Google Doc. So for this one, I'm going to create, Edward Abbey is one of my favorite authors here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of quotes from here and compile them into a docent, which I mean, I could just simply docent this even. But what I'm going to do is select these. So say if I just want to do these first ones, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put it into my Google Doc. All right, so new Google Doc. All right, so I'm going to paste in that information. Now, as a librarian emailed us, very important that you always cite your sources, right? So even though these are all being cited just like they're being cited from the book, we should be citing this. So I'm going to put down here at the bottom, text. There we go. All right, so I'm going to give this text of Edward Abbey. All right, so this is my text. Some of the ways I've done this has been when there's, I need to customize something, or if there's something on that website, say like ads or some other articles or information that they've got on that site that's not appropriate, I don't want my students to see, this is a good way of then kind of like separating that information out and putting it on here. One of our big philosophies at DocentEDU, though, is that learning should be authentic, right? So if it's an ESPN article about sports and physics, it should definitely be on ESPN.com because that's what's going to make this real. All right. So to use this with DocentEDU, you can't use it directly on this one because this is the one that you're supposed to be editing, this Google Docs. What you do is you publish it to a web. So I'm going to click on Publish, and yes, I want to publish this selection. And by copying this code, so I'm going to copy that URL, open up a new tab, paste that in. So published Google Doc is almost, it's kind of like a website version of that text. So now I can load in the DocentEDU extension on here, and I'm now free to do everything is that I want to, just like on any other website. And that includes things like embedding YouTube videos and all this other great stuff on there, just like you would on any other website. So essentially, you're adding in YouTube videos and these other things. And why would you want to use DocentEDU with this Google Doc versus just making a copy of that Google Doc for all of your students so they can respond like a big worksheet or something? One of the big things is if you've got 60-some students and you're embedding questions in here, one, it's great because this is going to now kind of like break up flow of existing text without a lot of extra work for you. You're not messing around with formatting or anything like that. But all the responses are going to get collected into the dashboards. That means that your grading is going to be much faster. So you're not opening up 30 different Google Docs to look at the responses and losing that, that what the whole class as a whole was thinking. You're able to like get that in the dashboard by looking at all the information in one spot. So that's how you use DocentEDU with a Google Doc. You first file, publish to web, and then it's this published URL that you will have. And this is the one that you would send your students to. All right, so one of the ones that I'm going to show you on here is a published Google Doc. here we go, is this 10 rare animals with bizarre adaptations. Now, this is an example of one of, this was from a website that was, it's kind of like top 10 things, and they had some inappropriate articles that were on the site, so I didn't want my students to read this. So for this one, what I did is I added in the instructions, but now instead of asking questions within the text, because there was a lot of text and it kind of broken down all these different animals, I instead wanted students to use the annotation tools so that they were interacting with the text. So we've got highlight, so I gave the instructions of highlight the adaptation and benefit for each animal, and highlight one thing you have a question about for each animal and add a note. So on here, we have not seen this before, but this little button will pop up when students in that class have annotated text on that page. So now when I click on here, I can select the student and I can now see what they've actually highlighted. So here's what Adrian put down, here's what Anthony highlighted, here's what Camille highlighted, and let's see here. So I think one of them added a note. Yeah, so one of them, so Deanna added in a little note right here. So click on that, I can see what the note was. So this is really fun. And my students told me that this is the first active reading lesson that I did in my science class. And my students told me that they actually really enjoyed this more than just the question ones, because they were able to focus on what they were reading and not how to type out an answer. So they were just simply highlighting the things that were the adaptations and not trying to think of, right, how do I synthesize this into text or a sentence or something like that. So they really enjoyed it. And down at the very end is where I then put in one of the questions. So I put in 2 questions now of kind of wrapping that whole thing up and give a chance to share their opinion on there. All right, so this is an example of the active reading on here. And again, say like if I was starting off to assign that docent, I would just simply click on there and select the class that I want to assign it to, and then that's it. So let's see, all right, so going back to the dashboard. So now, how do we assign this to your class? It's really simple. One way is students do have their own dashboard. So the quickest way to get to your dashboard is open a new tab and click the DocentEDU extension, and that will take you to the dashboard. Students have their own dashboard, and they will then see any docent that's been assigned to them, along with which class that they're in, and they can enroll themselves in additional classes by going here, and they would click the plus and enter in that class code. Another way is you just simply give them that URL. So let's say if we're going to go to, let's go with this one, this NPR News one. What we would do is I would just select this URL up the top, copy that, and then paste it into my LMS, say like if I'm using Google Classroom or something like that. Now this URL is a little bit different. It has hashtag DocentEDU at the end of it. If you just load the page as is, like without hashtag DocentEDU, so just a normal URL, DocentEDU doesn't automatically load. You have to click the extension, and it'll then load in anything else that you've got on there. Now, however, if you want to have the extension automatically load for students, so it's a really nice way of kind of like starting off to just have it load form is add in hashtag DocentEDU. Copy that, open a new tab. And if you've got that added to the end of any URL, it'll automatically load the extension in for you and the students. So it's really nice it's now they click on that link and boom, there it is. Now they've got all their questions and everything getting right there. So that's pretty great. Okay, so this is how to use DocentEDU. Go ahead and sign up for free. It's a free trial. You're limited to only 5 docents at one time. That means go on there, play around with it. If, delete those first couple of docents that you created that you're using just simply to play around and get some ideas, and then start creating some more. Send us a message if you have any questions. On our homepage, we've got a couple of different links on here, but under resources, there's some great information here we have tools to embed, text, sources, and accessibility. So we'll end with those tonight. These resources to embed are all different tools that you can embed into your docent. And those are really fun because they really change the flow of your lesson. They allow you to embed other kind of media that normally, just traditionally, you have not been able to do in really any other way. So go ahead and take a look at those. And we've got our other webcast or other webinar from last week that actually just focused on embed tools and some of our favorites that are out there. Text sources. So this is going to be one coming up later on this week, is how to find great free content that's out there on the internet, right? The whole thing is the internet has all the information that we're using pretty much as teachers today. It's just not student ready. So this is helping. This is our teacher curated list of great content that we've used as teachers and other people have told us about. So go on there, you can search through it, and then also you can look for what type of text you're looking for, as well as what age level you're looking for the text. And lastly, accessibility. DocentEDU works great with a variety of other extensions that can help bring things out. And some of our first users were ELL and special ed teachers because they had a huge need, immediate need of the internet as is right now just isn't very accessible to students that have special needs. And DocentEDU lets you modify websites. So it lets you kind of bring in the extra information that those students need. So those are some of our first users, and it's great now as more and more teachers are discovering DocentEDU, finding different ways. And a lot of students people that you have probably have their own special needs. DocentEDU lets you really kind of target those things. But some of these other extensions that you can use like AdBlock Plus, Speak It, Chrome Fox, and Read Write. These last three are great ones that help do the text to speech for students, as well as a couple of other things on there. And then AdBlock Plus is just a great browser extension because it'll block ads on the websites. All right, so that is the end of tonight's webinar of DocentEDU 101. If you have any questions, just send us an email or tweet us or send us a message on Facebook. I'll be happy to answer those and hope to see you at one of the future webinars.